Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast, where we discuss health education and how to best teach health ed in the K 12 setting. Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Reichel. This episode is titled Deep Thoughts for Starting Your School Year with Lori Reichel. Hopefully, saying deep thoughts, put a little smile on some of your faces out there if you watch the old Saturday Night Live episodes. So I thought it would be a little fun to use for this episode, in which I'm going to share my deep thoughts for simple activities to start a health education class with simple health concepts, as well as norms and expectations that we go over that first week that we first see our students. Please note, if you already started your school year, or maybe you're in the middle of your school year, you can still use these activities to review information you've gone over, perhaps meaning the basic health concepts, to reinforce certain concepts, to review regarding the norms and expectations. You can always go back to what you created in the beginning of a school year and ask students, should we revise them? Or if you never created them, to then revise them, to say, you know what, let's do these now. I think it's going to help support everyone's success by having expectations for our classroom. So without further ado, let me go over some simple activities that I have available on the schoolhealtheducators.org website for going over simple concepts in health education. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Those of you that want to watch this on the YouTube channel, you can see it. And let's start sharing. When you first go to schoolhealtheducators.org, you'll see the main page, and all that you have to do is go to the tab that reads Teaching HE, Health Education, and to the Back to School items, in which there's a whole bunch of links there for different resources that have other back to school items. Please check them out. If the items that I have on this website includes the Who is Healthiest activity. This is the activity I've used with 7th through 12th graders. I revise the situations that are on this activity, but I use it with those grades as well as with college students to process what actually are those dimensions of health. If you haven't listened to a previous episode of Who is Healthiest, that was done in the winter of 2024, please consider checking it out. Yet the activity, and I'll put it up on the screen, it basically provides descriptions of 5 fictional students, and they have to rank who is the healthiest. And when I use this with students, it gives me an idea of some of their thoughts regarding certain situations young people have in their lives. It might even point out some of their misinformation that they have, some of their judgments, their biases. So it's a simple way, again, of having them start off a health education class with what is wellness? What are those dimensions of health? This is not a getting to know you activity. This is more of, okay, this is what our health class is going to be about. And if you know me, I use SMEEPs of for the dimensions of wellness or the aspects of health, and that includes social. So SMEEPs of is an acronym. It includes social, mental, emotional, environmental, physical, spiritual, occupational, and financial. I don't always use the OF part for certain grades. So remember, you can use the parts that best fit the age group of your students. So that's the Who is Healthiest activity. On the schoolhealtheducators.org website, it's up there as a PDF. If you want a Word copy, you're going to have to email me because I can't have that on the website. It doesn't allow that file. So you can email me at schoolhealtheducators@gmail.com. Okay, another item that I have on here is a health education bingo sheet. Some of my students will be using this the first week of our class this fall. So, and this is a basic overview of some functional health knowledge that I'm hoping the students will have by the end of a class. And you can tweak it to however it would best suit your students. You know, like bingo, they have to get a typical bingo, you have to get an up down row in order to say bingo, or across, diagonal, four corners, that kind of stuff. Or you can do the whole entire bingo sheet. For this, people in the class, they walk around, your students walk around, and they ask their peers to sign in a box on the bingo sheet for something they know an answer to. So let's say I know the answer to how many national health education standards are there. I know that answer. I would put my name, Lori, in that box for that person to ask me to sign their bingo sheet. Now, my buddy Dom Splendorio taught me many years ago that when he's done bingo sheets, because this has been around for so long, when he's done them, when a person shouts out bingo, they come to the front of the room and then they then have to prove that the names they have on the sheet, the people whose names are on there, actually know the correct information for the question. So, for example, if I signed your bingo sheet and you got bingo from going across, and my name was listed for the question of how many national health education standards are there, if they were noted there, my name, you would ask me that question in class, and I would have to give the correct answer. If I don't, then you didn't really get the bingo. So the correct answer is 8. I know the correct answer on this one. Okay, so those are my deep thoughts with 2 simple overarching activities that I'd begin the beginning of a school year with after doing getting to know you activities. Another thing I like to share my deep thoughts on are norms or expectations that I typically set at the beginning of a course or school year. And again, I'm going to share my screen to share some of those. One expectation or norm I have in my courses is this is to be a safe classroom. Now, as a reminder, you can go over norms or expectations in a variety of ways. My buddy, Deb Tackman, who was on the second episode of the School Health Educators podcast, she talked about putting norms on pieces of paper, one each, and then putting them into those plastic Easter eggs that are sold and hiding them around the room so students can find them and then talk about what each norm is. So you can do this in a variety of ways. I'm just doing it on this podcast episode by going over one by one. I've done this way too in my classrooms, but I have them usually shown on the walls in a classroom in which each norm or expectation might be on a different colored paper, and we go over them as a class. So the first one, like I said, is this is to be a safe classroom. And I'll ask students, what does this mean to you? Traditionally, students will say things like, well, we have to be nice to one another, be open-minded, not call each other names. Yes, a respectful classroom is hoped for. Yet it's also a safe classroom physically, meaning there's no weapons in the classroom, no knives, nothing like that. Also, there's no drugs in the classroom, no substances being used. Think about how some kids that are used to being in an environment with substances might feel a relief of, oh, my health teacher just said we're not allowed to have substances in here. I'm safe. It's finally a place where I don't have to worry about somebody being high or drunk. Another norm or expectation is you have the right to ask for what you need, including the right to pass. So sometimes students will have an event that they might have an assignment due the day before, something like that, in which that individual might need a little bit of a different due date. Or maybe they, as a group, something major happened in the school and they need to not be so serious for the day in the class. Or it can be that perhaps it's something that I've been doing that they aren't going to ask that I stop doing something, and vice versa. I can do the same for students as the teacher. The right to pass means that, like, sometimes I'll call on students and I'll be like, Bob, what do you think? Bob has the right to pass. And as Bob goes, pass, that's cool. I don't go, come on, Bob. I really want to know. I just let Bob be. Okay. So you have the right to ask for what you need, including the right to pass. A third expectation or norm is you are enough. I ask again students to tell me what they think this is about. And this does not mean that I'm not expecting you to do work, because I do want you to do work. Yet what this means is it doesn't matter what your last name is to me. It doesn't matter what type of clothing, what shoes you're wearing, if you're on a particular team or club. You as an individual are enough, and you deserve to be happy and healthy. It's funny, as I'm going over this, you see how I even like go a little slower because I do take time with these. They actually center me for when I teach health education. Another norm is try to take a safe risk. Again, you can pass, you have the right to pass. Yet I do hope for students to get a little bit out of their comfort zone when we do certain activities, maybe to speak up in a small group when they wouldn't typically. So I'd like them to take a safe risk for themselves. Another norm is that ideas and opinions may be challenged, but individuals are to be respected. So let's say that something happens in the news that deals with politics, and students actually want to talk a little bit about it. They might talk about being supporting a certain type of politician, you know, how we have those labels of Republican, Democrat, liberal, all that kind of stuff. So they might have words that are said that other students might be like, I don't agree. So this norm basically supports you can speak your mind, yet if you don't agree, please attempt not to put down the individual. Instead, say, I don't agree to what you just said. You know, the reality is our young people have to figure out who they are and what their beliefs are. And sometimes doing so in class helps them do that, including figuring out if they really believe in what they heard on the news or heard other people say. So ideas and opinions may be challenged, but individuals are to be respected. Another norm is remember, we have similarities and we have differences. I don't need to expand on that one. Another one is mistakes are okay. Our learning is not a competition. And those of you watching this on the YouTube channel, you see that there is a mistake with the word mistakes. I purposefully do that on signs because I need students to see that it's okay that things aren't perfect. And some students might initially be bothered by that, yet I tell them it's okay. Like, I'm not expecting you to be perfect. You're perfect being you, but you're not a perfect human being. You're going to make mistakes. And sometimes our mistakes are the best way to learn, and that this is not a competition in our learning. We all have our own paths. This is one of my favorites. It's 1 put down equals 2 put ups, which means if you say something to me, even sarcastically, like you're teasing me, and maybe you make a comment about my shoes, if I perceive it as a put down, I need to hear 2 positive things about me. 1 put down equals 2 put ups. That also goes to myself. If I hear a student talking about themselves, or if I'm talking poorly about myself, I have to give myself 2 put ups. They have to give themselves 2 put ups. This also goes with the ouch rule. So if a student doesn't say, give me a put up, or now I deserve a put up, you can say ouch, just to simply say, wow, those words were hurtful. And then this also aligns with that phrase of don't yuck my yum. So if I'm sharing something with you and you basically put it down, like for example, if I go, hey, I just completed a 5K. Wow, that was really cool. You might say, 5K? Oh, I've done marathons. Ooh, that's yucking my yum. Please don't do that comparison. We all have our strengths and abilities, so we don't need to compare in that way. Another norm that I have is the personal stories and questions stay in class. Yet, 3 times personal stories will leave the classroom. And I say this to students throughout the school year, and especially anytime we're talking about personal things, like if we're talking about substances, if we're talking about suicide. So the 3 times that personal stories will go to the guidance counselor or another professional needing to be spoken with, those 3 times those stories don't stay in the classroom is when someone is being hurt, someone is going to hurt somebody, or if they're going to hurt themselves. So if someone is being hurt by someone else, somebody in the classroom wants to hurt someone else, and that will include number 3 themselves. Those stories will leave the classroom, but not being left as gossip, but left to go get people to help them. So those are 9 norms or expectations that I sometimes use. Depending upon the age of the students, there'll be less amount of norms or expectations in which, when we're teaching, we begin to understand the amount of information that we give to students. Again, this is just some examples you can use. Yet this episode again is focusing on my deep thoughts of norms and expectations, as well as some very simple activities that you can begin that functional health knowledge with about wellness with your students. So I'm hoping that this episode was helpful. I will give you a heads up on the next episode. I'm so excited. I reached out to former guests on the School Health Educators podcast to see if they can give me a welcome back message, as well as some leaders out there in the field. And I'm beginning to get responses back, little video clips that I'm going to put together, and that will serve as the next episode. And the ones I've already received, I have loved. So stay tuned. Please continue being you. Like usual, continue to follow the School Health Educators podcast. Please give us a thumbs up. That'd be really great. Please check out the website, schoolhealtheducators.org, and please continue being you. The kids need us. Students of all ages have the right to be happy and healthy. So please continue doing the diligent work that you're doing. Stay well.